Larry, your distinctly masculine outlook on life, and Sue, your feminine way of looking at things, your capacities to love and be loved. In these and many other ways, you each acquire a background, so that when you first met, you were probably farther apart, probably more distinct individuals than when you were born.
But I don't want to marry a girl like me. I want to marry a man like him.
There's not much that is normal about my family.
My family is, well, there's my mom and my dad, Michael and Michelle.
There's me. I got 2 brothers and a sister.
So my grandfather, he had Pentecostal preacher parents, right? So they scared him, and he was like a cool, like, jazzy dude in the 50s.
Well, it started out with mommy and daddy. That didn't last too long.
And they were divorced when I was 2 years old. My dad is married to a woman named Tracy Patterson, who's my stepmother.
And so the 4 of us, we were all born by our same mother and father, Patsy and John. They were married for, I think, 11 years.
So he divorced his first wife and had a kid with this wife. But then she's this crazy lady, so he divorced her and married another woman that had 2 kids.
My parents divorced when I was, I think, about 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old.
My dad remarried a few years later, and my mom, she remarried pretty soon thereafter, within the next year, to Kate.
Lived with my mom, and then after maybe a year or 2, her partner moved in, and I grew up with my mom and her partner.
And my mom is in a partnership with a woman named Ana Torres.
Mom never got married, and then she came out when I was about, I want to say, 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. I honestly don't remember that time of my life that clearly.
"75 years in the story of the family as a social institution is very short indeed. And yet, in that time, the pattern of family life in America has undergone radical changes.
I think I was 9 or 10 years old. I think I was in the 4th grade, so I was probably 10. And we were folding laundry, and I remember we were getting a new roommate. I remember my mom was like, "So we're getting a new roommate, Anna," but she's more than just a roommate, we're together, and I was kind of like, okay. I didn't really think about it, I guess, just because I didn't really think that it was anything to think about.
I don't know if I realized that my mom and Kate were together, right off the bat, but within the next year, my life, she was a pretty big part of my life.
I was really young when she came out, and I actually knew that she was gay before. I don't know how I knew, but I knew before she told me that she was divorcing my father and that she was different. And she sat me down at the kitchen table, and gave me this spiel about how we love people even when they're different. She went through the kind of the stereotypical differences that we talk about. We talk about acceptance and diversity, and then she said. She kind of paused, and I said, "Like gay people?"
It was fun. It was just like another person in our life, like another person there to support us. And
everything, at first it was a big secret, because it's the 80s, and still, especially right when AIDS came in too, it got even worse.
I thought that if you were gay, it meant that you were going to get AIDS, which is really an interesting, like, kind of telling of that time and media perceptions of gay people, and that I just had picked up, not from my mother, but from general culture, that AIDS was kind of synonymous with gay. And so I was really confused about why my mom would want to have AIDS, because it was kind of traumatic as a little kid, not understanding the connections or the disconnects between being gay and having AIDS.
Look, looking for my shit?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm unorganized. I'm an Aquarius. I don't know if that means that you're unorganized, but I don't know. It was definitely a new chapter in our life. It was like one chapter had ended and this was kind of the new chapter. And at first I didn't really think that much of like that my mom was like now a lesbian or anything until I think probably the 6th grade. And I remember one of my friends was really mad at me. It was my best friend, Thurza Hess. She was mad at me and she told all my friends my mom was a lesbian. And I was like, nuh-uh, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. And like that was the first time that I really remember being like, oh, that's not okay. Or like there's something wrong with that.
One of my first memories was like where I really realized it. She used to have like a bookshelf with like all her, lesbian books and, but stuff, like the same sex and, lesbian minds and lesbian this. And I remember, friends come over and stuff like this. And we were just getting to the age where, it kind of meant something. You knew faggot was a bad word. You're like, 6 or 7. And they all came over and they saw these books and they started pulling them off the shelves and like, oh, your mom's a lesbian, your mom's gay, blah, blah, blah. Look at all these books and just like, it was like one of those first times where you're like, wow, this is something very different. I'm not like other kids or,
We had this teacher who was gay. There was one kid who we were both in the back of the classroom kind of just goofing off and stuff, and he was just like talking shit, just kind of saying nasty things, and just got to a point where I was just kind of disgusted. And then like I finally said something to him in a way that was, instead of defending one side, I was kind of attacking him. But we got up in the classroom, like started pushing each other and stuff, and the teacher came and broke it up. And that was also a time where I realized that like not everybody, has a lesbian mom.
Popularity. What is it made of? How does a person get to be popular with lots of people and have a few close friends too? Let's watch and see what makes people like one person and not another.
It was my sophomore year in high school. We were having this Martin Luther King Day assembly. We would have these assemblies in our gym, and people were doing all different kinds of things. And one girl who went to my high school, she said this speech, and it was like her coming out speech. It was a huge deal. It was like there was some people that were booing her. There were some people that were just like right on with her, People weren't like cheering or anything, but like there were some people that were being assholes about it. I was in drama class and I went back to class, and my friend Megan at the time, her mom was lesbian as well, and like I knew this. And we never talked about it, but I just like broke down and started crying. It was like all this pressure, and it was like the first time that anyone had like really talked about it in my school. It was like I had to have that emotional response for me to understand how I like felt about the whole thing, and just how kind of like suffocating it felt as I was growing up to like have a bunch of just like homophobes around me all the time.
I just basically remember like the environment, the social climate not being one of acceptance, or people were kind of mean. But I guess that's kind of the way it is in most schools.